Hey guys, I'm so excited to share with you today's video because I'm going to be trying a dish that people are obsessed with on the eastern side of the US. I'll be making Cincinnati chili, which has some mighty unusual spices in it. It sounds a little odd to me, but anytime there is a cult-like following of a dish, I figure it must be good. So today I'm giving it a try, and it's a super low-cost recipe to make, so it fits in well with the channel. Later in the video, I'll also be sharing some of my lunches that I've been making that are coming in at the $1 range. I've discovered a delicious convenience meal that is also nutritious that I want to tell you about. All my family members are around today, so I'm going to be making two versions of this dish. I'll be making one with a plant-based ground beef for myself, and then I'm going to be using the rest of the ground beef from last week's video, and I've got a half a pound here. I'll be using that to make a regular ground beef version for the rest of my family. And the basic ingredients for this dish are your ground beef product, some tomato paste, the kidney beans, and some spices. And actually, the kidney beans are optional. So let's talk about toppings, because no discussion of Cincinnati chili would be complete without going over the way system, which refers to toppings. There's the classic two-way, which is just chili and spaghetti. There's the three-way, which is chili, spaghetti, and cheese, and that's cheddar cheese, of course. There's four-way, which is chili, spaghetti, and either onions or beans and cheddar cheese. And then there's five-way, which is chili, spaghetti, onions, beans, and cheese. And yes, there are even six-way chilies. However, that sixth ingredient is debatable. One restaurant uses chopped fresh garlic as the sixth ingredient. Other recipes call for oyster crackers or tortilla chips, so it's really just up to you. I started with 3/4 of a cup of the ground beef product. I looked online for a reference and found that 1 cup uncooked ground beef is about a half a pound. And because I'm not sure how I'm going to like this dish, I wanted to start with a smaller amount. If you're cooking for a family of 4, then obviously just adjust the ingredients. I started by browning my ground beef crumbles, and then I added about 1/4 of a can of tomato paste, and I'm just going to let that cook for a little while, and then I'll add in a couple of cloves of chopped garlic, and that's just because I do have it on hand, but obviously you can add in garlic powder, and I am going to be a little extra today and add in a few sprinkles of the garlic powder as well as the garlic cloves. Today has been such a fun day in my house because it is Sunday and my sons are here, so we're all going to be eating together. We rarely see each other during the week, and my son Justin is very excited about this recipe. We've both been reading all of the history on this dish and just reading up on what people's preferences are and deciding how we want to make our versions. And one thing I've noticed is that they say that the traditional Cincinnati chili should be kind of saucy, so not too thick. I'll be adding a half tablespoon of chili powder and also a half tablespoon of paprika. Some recipes that I found didn't include paprika at all, but I also found other places online where they say that the original Skyline chili did have paprika in it. So I think that that's highly debatable. But I was noticing that in the Walmart in Cincinnati, they sell cans of the original Skyline chili, and it does list paprika as an ingredient. And it's my understanding that the creator of the Skyline restaurants was a Greek immigrant. I found it quite interesting how all of these products were available in the Walmart on that side of the US, but it's not carried at all here in California. They even sell spice packets to just dump into your chili, and I noticed that those had the paprika as well. And I'm using a Spanish paprika, which is smoky with just a hint of sweetness. I think it's going to be perfect for this chili, and really any chili. Like I said earlier, this chili has some spices like cinnamon, allspice, and cloves that are quite foreign to me in a savory dish. So my strategy for this is to go very, very light on those so that I can get a feel for the dish without being overwhelmed by it, if that makes any sense. So especially on these spices like cinnamon, I'm just going very, very light. So I'm actually adding less than 1/8 of a teaspoon of cinnamon. I'm not as worried about the cinnamon as I am the allspice and the cloves. I think it's really important to smell your spices and also to taste your food right after you add the spices to it so that you learn more about the spices. And for the allspice, I noticed it smelled kind of similar to the cloves, and I was wondering if the allspice was actually a mixture of spices because I don't have a lot of experience with this spice. So I looked it up and it's actually only one spice, which I think is poorly named because the term allspice does lead one to think that it's a mixture of spices. It's made from dried unripe berries of a tree called Pimenta dioica, which is native to southern Mexico and Central America. I don't think there's a bolder spice than ground cloves, so I'm only going to put a very small amount in here. And in fact, I decided to let this cook for a little while and taste it before adding in the ground cloves so that I would have an idea of the taste of this. Just in case I don't like the ground cloves, I'll know what it tastes like without it. When I'm talking about a tiny amount, I'm seriously talking about a tiny amount. This is all I'm willing to put in there because I know if I put too much, it's just going to overwhelm the entire dish and then I may not like it at all. So this is the amount I ended up with. And I'm planning to put 1 teaspoon of brown sugar in here, but I'm going to start with a 1/2 teaspoon and then see how I like it. And I'm going to add about 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt. I'll add more later if I need it, but if you're making this for yourself, obviously just salt to taste because everyone does have a different level of salt that they prefer in their food. I do want to say at this point that this is smelling and looking amazing. And I did already taste this, and it might just be my favorite vegan chili that I've ever made, but it's very unusual. The flavors are not something that you would normally expect in chili, but it just seems to work. I can't wait to try this over spaghetti. And then also add in some different toppings. So I'm using the rest of this ground beef from last week's video. It's only a 1/2 pound, but I thought I would just make a side pan here for the rest of my family and see how that works out. But I know that he is going to be as sketchy as I am on those spices. He's going to be even more so. So I'm probably going to go even a little lighter on his. And I'm not going to show the entire thing all over again, but I just wanted to let you know that. And then also I wanted to let you know that I guess originally when they made this, they boiled the hamburger, and they say that it goes into tiny little pieces because really what you want are those very small little pieces kind of minced up. But I also noticed in some of the recipes that they were like manually taking off the fat layer after it had cooled. So for me, I just think cooking the beef and then draining the fat is just an easier method. But if anyone has tried by boiling the meat, then definitely let me know. And I think the vegan crumbles actually worked out perfectly for this because they were in the very, very small pieces. So they kind of blended into the sauce nicely. And I definitely could have done a better job at mincing this ground beef up. I found that some recipes called for beef broth or chicken broth. However, you'll notice that I didn't add any to the meatless version that I'm making. But my son did request chicken broth in his. That has always been a part of the way that we make chili. I'm just going to do it because he wants to. So I'm going to add a couple teaspoons of the chicken bouillon powder in here. But again, it's optional and many recipes don't call for that at all. My option has plenty of flavor without it. While this is simmering a bit, I'm going to check on my meatless option, and I decided to go ahead and add the other half teaspoon of brown sugar to this. I'm enjoying the subtle sweetness here. I think it just really works well in this dish. You can see how thick my sauce has gotten. I do need to add some more water to thin this out and make it more saucy. I decided to go all out with the toppings just so I can try everything and see what I like. So I've got some finely shredded extra sharp cheddar. I have some chopped sweet onions that my son went to the store and got. He was so excited to try this that he actually went and purchased these crackers and the onions. And the crackers are actually supposed to be oyster crackers, but the store didn't have those, so he got the saltines, and then we just cut those up into pieces. And then I have a can of kidney beans. Here I'm plating up my meatless version. You can see how thin the sauce is, just enough to pour over the spaghetti. And I'm sure if you wanted to, you could add in the kidney beans to the sauce, especially if you're trying to save money. But this time today, I just wanted to have those separate so that each person could add what they wanted to the plate. And I do love meals where you can serve it buffet style with all of the different toppings. I think that those are so fun. I seem to have a memory of a cookbook where I did see some kind of chili with all of these toppings, and they also had those yellow tortilla chip rounds set out, and I think also olives, but I'm not positive on the olives. So anyway, I'm sure that there's a few things that you could do. I do want to say that this smells and tastes amazing. I love this meal, and it's definitely a keeper for a family recipe. I can see why Cincinnati chili has become so popular. In fact, my family loved it so much also that I'm actually going to be making this again on Saturday. It's funny because when my son tasted his against mine, he actually liked his much better with the milder seasonings in it. However, once he added his meat to the spaghetti with all of the toppings, he thought mine tasted much better. So make a little mental note of that. It's interesting because those flavors are something that you don't normally associate with chili, but it somehow just works, and it makes a dish that you're thinking about days after you ate it. It's just that good. But again, if you're from the West or the North and you've never heard of Cincinnati chili and you've never had any of those kinds of spices like cinnamon or allspice in your foods, then I definitely recommend starting light on those seasonings like I did. And I do love the different textures that were in here, which I think is the point of adding the crackers and the crispy sweet onions. And oh my gosh, this was so good. I didn't get many shots of eating this because I was so famished and I was so excited to eat, but I did want to say how delicious it was. We had such a great day this day. My whole family was just so into this meal and we were all participating. And my son even purchased some bottled soft drinks for us to go along with this. So I think it was late in the day and I chose a Sprite, and I actually don't remember what they got, but it was just so good. Sometimes having a soda along with a meal just tastes so good, especially when you don't drink them all the time. I made taco spaghetti last year on the channel, and that was fabulous, but it was nothing like this. Even though it had somewhat similar ingredients, they have completely different tastes. When I make this on Saturday, I'll be serving this with tortilla chips. I happen to have some left over because I had a potluck at work this week, and I took that lentil feta dip that I showed you guys a couple months ago, and everyone loved it. I had 8 people ask for the recipe, and that was out of a gathering of 30 people. I always consider a dish successful if people are asking for the recipe, and you really can't have an easier recipe for a potluck than that one. And just like I was talking about the many ways that you could use that lentil bolognese sauce that I made a couple weeks ago, same goes for this one. You could use this to make chili dogs. You could use this basically on a bun to make a different kind of sloppy joe. This would be great over rice. Actually would be delicious served over corn cakes or corn waffles. That would be really good. And I wanted to show you guys a healthy convenience meal that I discovered this week using this eggplant with tomatoes and onions from Trader Joe's. I am so busy in my life right now that I need lots of quick, healthy, and cheap convenience meals. And I know a lot of you have the same situation, and I'm always looking for healthy meals. I think I got this for less than $3, and I found a way to make 3 meals with this during the week. And anytime I'm trying a new dish that I'm not sure is going to taste good, I just make a tiny portion size and then see how I like that. And if it's good, then I'll make the full meal. That way I don't waste anything. I started by making a pot of jasmine rice, and this just has a little turmeric in it. This was such a delicious meal, and by my estimation, this came in at less than $1.50. Like I said, it only had a few walnuts and a few of the olives, but it was so tasty, and my son liked this as well. I made one of these bowls for him for dinner one night, and he really enjoyed it. And he loves sun-dried tomatoes, so I added a few of those to his bowl. You know, sometimes even if you're using more expensive ingredients, even if you only use a few of those items, it still ends up being an inexpensive meal. And those items can really add a lot to your dish. And I liked this so much that I took it in my lunch the next day. That's it, guys. I hope you liked this week's video. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you have a great week. I'll see you Sunday, if not sooner, on my other channel.
Morning has broken, my windows are open. Wanna feel the wind blow through my hair. Which way do I follow? What happens tomorrow? I turn to you and hope you can guide the way. Sometimes I give up, just wanna be on my